Just like in every single video game, I feel like there's always going to be a meta problem. And for those who don't know what the meta of a video game is, it's basically what everybody is doing. The most overpowered thing you could possibly do to pretty much beat any other player in the game that you're playing. And in Modern Warfare, it's a very simple meta. Obviously, it's a very campy game, very position-based game, but the meta is very clear. They made sure of it. The only guns you really need to use in this game are the M4 and the MP5. Now, you can fight against this topic. You can tell me that a lot of the other ARs are more powerful. There's guns that can easily outgun the M4, damage-wise. Some machine guns that can outgun the MP5. I know tons of people who prefer to use the MP7 or the P90 over the MP5. But at the end of the day, if you really want to dominate a lobby, if you really want to play your absolute best, the M4 and the MP5 are your go-to weapons. It's sad because in a game that gives you this Gunsmith with all the customizations that you can put on these guns between the attachments, the camos, all these things you can do to these weapons and all these different variations of these weapons, but you can't use over half of them without being at a massive disadvantage. Now, like I said, you can argue this. You can say, well, the Odin will 1 to 2 tap someone where the M4 takes a lot of bullets. But this is the thing about the M4. And especially in a game like Modern Warfare where the time to kill is so fast. If you cannot land your shots accurately, if you have trouble hitting your opponents, the M4 is the go-to weapon. It has an insanely fast fire rate, kills in a very decent amount of time. The mag is fat, and you can even upgrade it to a 60-round mag. Overall, it's just an outstanding gun. It kills at long range, kills at close range. Literally no recoil on this weapon. It's OP. It gets to the point in Modern Warfare lobbies where if you see people running around with the M4 or the MP5, you aren't encouraged to use any other weapon. Happens to me all the time. I mean, sometimes I can use the Kilo. I like the Kilo. The Kilo is a very good weapon. The Scar is a good weapon as well. Like I said, I love all the weapons. I always love a little variety in my weapon choices. But in Modern Warfare, you don't really get an option to want to mess around with any of the other weapons. If you use anything outside of the M4 or the MP5, you just kind of get out-melted. I mean, the MP7 is an outstanding weapon. Very, very reasonable weapon, especially at range. But sadly, it's a hit marker machine. Now, it is a good weapon if you get down the recoil pattern, and eventually the hit markers won't, bother you as much once you understand how to use the weapon. But at the end of the day, it's still a hit marker machine when the MP5 is not. Now, the P90, very reliable weapon as well. Long range, close range, fat mag. But once again, takes too long to kill. MP5 kills instantly. There's no point. There's absolutely no point in using another SMG besides the MP5, because the MP5 will instantly melt the enemies, while the other submachine guns will not. Same thing with the M4. You put it up against an AK-47. The AK-47 is a massive weapon that packs a massive punch. But sadly, the M4 shoots faster, has less recoil, and you will land more shots on the enemy than someone with the AK-47. Now, if you are versing an experienced player, someone who's very good with the AK-47, then that's going to weigh out the odds a little bit more. But if you put an extremely experienced player using an AK-47, and then an extremely experienced player using an M4, the experienced player using the M4 is going to win 9 times out of 10. The M4 is just too reliable. Same thing with the Odin or any other assault rifle, even the Kilo. The M4 shoots faster, it has a higher damage, and it just feels better in the hands of the player. It puts you in a point where if you see players using these weapons, you're out of luck. You either have to switch to use those weapons just so you can compete, because God forbid you use a Kilo while 3 people on the other team are using M4s, or God forbid you use an Odin. Well, yeah, definitely not the Odin while people are using M4 on the other team. These weapons just cannot compete with any of the other choices like the M4 or the MP5. And sadly, that's just not how you want your game to turn out. When you make a multiplayer game, specifically an FPS game, you want variety. Unless you're going for a more competitive vibe. But with Modern Warfare, I don't really see much competitive about this. It's a very noob-friendly game, so there's no need for only 2 weapons to be used in this title. You would think all the weapons would be usable. That's the whole point of buying a $60 game, is to get $60 worth of content in this game. But when you have people who can instantly melt you, you don't want to use those other options. Now, if nobody in the lobby used an M4 or MP5, if nobody did it, then you can easily use whatever you want. The variety is good. The guns, besides the M4 and the MP5, all the other weapons work together nicely. If you have some people using AKs, Odins, and Kilos, some people using MP7s, P90s, Bisons, if you have a nice mix like that, you won't get that, wow, that gun is way too overpowered feeling. But the second someone pulls down an M4 or MP5, that's it. Everybody in the lobby is either forced to change to one of those weapons to compete, or they're going to have to just suffer. If the player is good. If it's a bad player using an M4 or MP5, it probably won't benefit them. It will just help them learn the game a little bit more. But if it's a good player using an M4 or MP5, there's no point. I'm to the point now where I just want to use the M4 and the MP5. Because with how competitive this game is, and with skill-based matchmaking, every lobby's packed with the M4s. That's just how it is. If you want a high KD, you have to branch out. Well, not branch out. You have to stay and use the same weapons. That's just how it goes. Now, me personally, I always branch out. Like, I don't know when this video is going up. Either I have a live gameplay coming that was before this video or is coming after this video. But it's P90 gameplay. Absolute sauce. I can't wait until you guys see this video. Make sure you tune in if it's tomorrow. But it's some serious sauce. I'm using the P90. So, obviously, you aren't forced to use these weapons. But if you want the best experience, if you want the most optimal experience, you're going to have to cave in and use either the M4 or MP5 just so you can compete. Now, this is very hard to do because if they want to fix this, they have very few options. They can either buff everything else or completely nerf the MP5 and M4 and MP5 into the dirt. Now, I do not want to see these weapons nerfed. Honestly, me personally, I think the M4 was nerfed enough. I think it's in a perfect spot as it is. Honestly, at just how it feels, it's one of my favorite weapons, honestly. And the MP5, perfect spot as well. I don't think they need to be nerfed. I think they are in good spots. But the best way to handle the situation is to buff the other weapons so they can compete. Like the Kilo, I would give it less recoil and higher damage to compete with the M4. Odin, less recoil. AK, less recoil. All these guns need less recoil because the M4 is a laser beam. And no matter how many attachments you put on the AK or the Odin, it's just not very beneficial. You can make the Odin with no recoil, but then you're going to have to suffer with, what's the word I'm looking for? Insanely slow ADS speed, which is not good. Because the M4, you do not have to put anything on this gun to affect the ADS speed, and it will still shoot like a laser beam. Which is exactly my point. These weapons, it's hard to compete because, yes, you can transform these other weapons like the AK, Kilo, MP7, the Bison, P90. You can transform these guns to compete with guns like the MP5 or the M4. But at the end of the day, after you put all the attachments on to finally make it a good weapon that can compete with these other guns, at that point, it's just not good anymore. You might get no recoil, you might have higher damage, but there's always a con, which is kind of aggravating in this game. Let me ask you guys this. Why is it that a grip tape on my gun slows down my ADS? What? It's a grip tape. How does that slow down anything? Some of the cons in this game are absolutely stupid. I feel like they just did some stuff just to do it so they can say they changed something in the game. Devs being devs as usual. Gotta love it. But I don't think the M4 and MP5 need a nerf. I highly think that all the guns around them need a buff. Infinity Ward spent way too much time nerfing the 725 and the M4 into the dirt, and not enough time focusing on the other weapons to balance everything out. Now, they did do some tuning here and there, but it's not in a good spot yet. Still to this day, you'll see M4s taking over the kill feeds constantly. Now, raising the fire rate is going to be hard to do, I guess, because it's going to definitely affect how the guns feel, look, and just how everybody will enjoy them. But I highly think that you should raise the fire rate of certain weapons. Definitely raise the damage of a lot of the SMGs. The MP7 needs a damage buff. The P90 needs a damage buff. The Bison, maybe a little bit better on the recoil. I don't think it needs a damage buff, but it definitely needs a recoil buff. And, I mean, AK, recoil buff. Odin, recoil buff, maybe ADS speed buff, definitely on the Odin. All the assault rifles across the board should get an ADS buff as well. It's a lot of things that can be done to the other weapons, but I do not think they should touch the M4 or MP5. I think they're perfect as they are. But I want to thank everybody for tuning into this video. As always, it means the absolute world to me. And make sure you go ahead down into the comment section and let me know how you guys feel. Do you guys think the same as me? Do you think the M4 and MP5 completely dominate lobbies? Or are those just my lobbies where I only see M4s and MP5s that people are using? No, but there's no variety in this game, which is sad because, like I said, there is a lot of variety. There is a lot of weapons. There is a lot of attachments, camos. There's a lot of stuff to do. But sadly, it's no point in experimenting with any of the stuff in this game when there's specific class setups that will dominate the whole game. So I think there definitely has to be a meta change. Hopefully Infinity Ward will at least do this because, as you guys know, Infinity Ward is just loving ignoring the community right now. Like, it's sad because I thought that they were going to start listening to the community because before the game let out, they were very responsive with the community. They were listening to the community. They were responding, everything. Now that the game has come out, they just don't care anymore. So who knows what they'll do. But me personally, I'm going to say it here now, the game needs a meta change. It's absolutely horrible as it is right now. Nobody uses anything else besides M4s and MP5s. There's no variety. There's no fun. And if you want your game, which has so much potential to be probably one of the, you see, I'm always wording stuff weird. For this, I want to say this game has the most content out of any Call of Duty game, besides maps, but weapons, camos, and customizations with attachments, the most we have ever seen in Call of Duty, yet there's no reason to use it, which sucks. So I highly think Infinity Ward should mess around with this so their Gunsmith feature doesn't just go to complete waste. But thank you guys so much for checking out this video. Make sure you leave a like if you enjoyed it. You can always dislike it if you hated it. If you're brand new to this channel and you enjoyed what you saw, make sure you go ahead and subscribe to this channel and hit the bell notification button. Also, if you want to catch me chatting or see some behind the scenes clips, you can follow me over on Twitter at JbowenDaMan. And also, if you just want to catch me live streaming, I do that over on Twitch at JbowenDaMan as well. Thank you guys so much for checking out this video, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.